Yes, sir. David Bennett.
Mr. Speaker, I never thought I'd say the words in this House, but I wish Phil Twyford was back. Phil Twyford was the reasonable, sensible face of Labor Party transport policy.
That's right.
Now the Labor Party has given up not only economic policy to the Green Party, but it's now given up transport policy to the Green Party. What kind of Labor Party are you? What kind of opposition is the Labor Party when the Green Party dictates your policies? When the Green Party tells you what to say in this House? Be a real Labor Party.
A point of order. Mr. Speaker, I believe that it's outside of standing orders to suggest that any members or parties are under the influence of any other group.
I don't believe that was that the assertion was made that the member was under an influence. I understand it's a reasonably fine point, but I don't think that assertion was made with clarity. David Bennett.
Mr. Speaker, they are so sensitive, but they are going to be more sensitive when the regions of New Zealand hear these words. The words coming from the Labor Party spokesperson on transport, that the car is the least sustainable form of transport. Say that again, the car is the least sustainable form of transport. Another thing he just said in this speech was that there will only be CPI increases for transport budget. Only CPI increases. The other thing he said that wasting money on out-modelled transport infrastructure and big projects, monster highways, they will not support the road's national significance. That's true, isn't it, Darian Fenton? And I know it is, and because in Hamilton we have the Waikato Expressway being built. And I like to see the day that a Labor Member of Parliament or Minister in waiting comes to Hamilton and actually says that. They can't come there and say that, because they came into the paper. It was in the Waikato Times a few months ago. Martin Gallagher, that great MP from Hamilton West that is nearly as great as the current MP from Hamilton West, asked the question of the Labor Party, do you actually mean what you say? And they would not answer it. The Labor Party would not answer it because they know that they can't go into Hamilton and say that they're not going to support the road's national significance. Sue Moroney doesn't have any opinion on this matter. That's the no. And that's the Labor Party. No opinion because they know it's bad policy. And I wait for the day when that member and the leader of the Labor Party come to Hamilton and are asked by the councillors and the mayor and all the big parties in Hamilton, are you going to support the roads of national significance, the Waikato Expressway? And they won't say a word. They will not say a word because they want to go to the next election having no commitment on this. But their real feeling is that they won't support it. And today we have seen this in this House, and that is a shame, and that's why you're going to lose provincial votes. Do not give in to the Green Party anymore. Be a true Labor Party. Stand up for reasoned Labor Party values. You are not the Green Party, and we look forward to this bill progressing through the Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Darian Fenton.
Thank you very much. Well, it's a pleasure to take a call on the Land Transport Management Amendment Bill, and I want to start by acknowledging the previous speaker, the rant from the previous speaker. My question to him and also to the other member from Hamilton is why is he so desperate to have people from Hamilton getting out of Hamilton going to Auckland? Well, yes, you must be. You must be because you go on and on and on about the Waikato Expressway. That's what it's for. It's for because you want to see people from Hamilton going to Auckland because they can't get jobs in Hamilton because that member's done nothing about job creation and just like the rest of his government. So, you know, that was a rant from that member, but we've come to expect that, and I would like to advise the House and the listeners that actually on the Select Committee, he shows a little bit more decorum, and he did chair sometimes, not when Andrew Little was there actually, and now Sue Moroney's back too, and we're expecting to see lots of decorum. we expect. So in this bill, there were 98 submissions, and we heard 29 submissions. And one of the good things that the Select Committee did was to go to Auckland to hear from interested parties, and that's quite unusual, really, for this government. They seem to want to cut back on select committee processes frequently. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Okay, and so returning to the bill, having praised the chair, and he was too busy shouting across the House to listen, which is pretty common, may I say. I wanted to talk about the bill a wee bit because the purpose is to reform the Land Transport Management Act 2003, and I thought I'd inject a little bit of history into the Land Transport Management Act 2003 because that was a brilliant piece of work done by the former Labor government and represented the biggest change in land transport funding and management since the 1980s. Prior to that, it was a complete mess. The Land Transport Management and Funding framework was incredibly flawed. There was no strategic direction. It didn't allow an integrated approach to be taken to land transport because it focused on roading. Well, here we are, 10 years afterwards, and we have a bill that's all about roading. So this bill undermines all of the good work that was done with that Act, along with the Public Transport Management Act. It made significant strides in our land transport systems, including public transport, but of course public transport takes a back seat under this government. And all of that work, there was a 2008 also brought in by the Labor government, which enhanced New Zealand's transport planning and funding system. That Act provided for fuel excise duty for land transport purposes and changed the way that fuel excise is set to provide more certainty for future investment. That was a very progressive move by the previous Labor government. We increased the investment in public transport tenfold and funding for passenger transport services. And while I'm talking about the history of this bill, Mr. Speaker, can I also just remind the House that it was Labor who initiated double tracking, electrification and extension of passenger transport to other parts of Auckland, the reopening of railway links, some of which are now being closed, and the North Shore Busway. And I was just gobsmacked to hear Stephen Joyce, the Honourable Stephen Joyce, claiming credit for the electrification and the double tracking of the Auckland rail system, because I know that's not true. I live in West Auckland. I know that who started that project. I know that it was Labor that did that, and I found it pretty outrageous, actually, that Stephen Joyce would try and take credit for that. I suppose he has to in a way, though, because there's not many other public transport systems initiatives that he can take credit for. So, as I said, this bill undoes much of the good work that was done in the 2003 Land Transport Management Act, and it does show that the government has realised that their roads of national significance projects are too expensive, and they're going to have to borrow to fund them or make them all toll roads. Now, without increasing petrol tax beyond the CPI adjustments, NZTA would need to borrow $930 million over the next 5 years to keep the RONs on track. Let's say that again. $930 million will need to be borrowed over the next 5 years to keep the roads of national significance on track, and that's why we have to have this bill. That's why we have to have this bill. The government's realised they can't afford it, and they're going to set it up so they can borrow more, and they can set up public-private partnerships, and they can toll people, hard-working people who are already struggling to get by. The change in the purpose section, I think, says it all, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the committee stages. But the only reason that I can see that the government's making the changes to that purpose section is that it no longer wants a transport system which is affordable, integrated, safe, sustainable and accessible, or one that promotes public health, environmental and social responsibility. That's the only conclusion one can draw from the fact that they've amended the purpose bill. It is about National trying to tighten its control of the land transport system so it can cherry-pick more projects to suit itself. And the sad thing about that, Mr Speaker, is that this bill removes the opportunities for local communities to support transport projects that benefit them. And that is something that I think that communities are getting pretty outraged. The bill reduces opportunities for the community to have input into transport systems. Every community should have the ability to have their say about their transport systems. But what have we got? We've got the debacle in Auckland, where you now have a consensus on a way forward for funding for transport, and the government won't have a bar of it. They won't have a bar of it. They brought together a whole lot of people, business, unions, transport experts, people who, the cycling forum, all sorts of people have come together and agreed on a system of funding into the future for Auckland, and the government is just pulling we're the big boys in town. Wellington should tell Auckland what they have to do for the future. Now, I live in Auckland, and I support the plans that have come from our council about the future. I'm sick of being on roads that are jammed to the hilt, and I do not believe that there will be building more roads will change that. In fact, in Auckland, there is nowhere to build more roads. No, you're sending them to Auckland. That's the problem. If you stop sending all these people to Auckland through the expressway, we probably wouldn't have so many problems. But I'm sick of that. I want to see a city in the future that is supported by this government. It's not supported by the government. The plans, the wonderful unitary plan that has been widely consulted on throughout the city is being ignored by the government because they don't want communities to have any say in the future of their cities or their transport systems, and that's what this bill does, Mr Speaker. It also continues to underfund local roading, and it sees a subsidy on state highways receive $509,000 per kilometre compared to $7,570, $3 per kilometre for local roads. So a huge subsidy going in state highways compared to the local roads. So, I'm sure that other speakers are going to want to talk about Transmission Gully and the expensive project that's turning out to be. But, this bill, as I said at the beginning, Mr Speaker, undoes all of the good work that was done by Labor over 10 years. We inherited a mess in the road transport system. We put in place some very, very good systems and projects. We allowed wanted communities to have a say. This bill undoes all of that and goes back to roads, like we had the last time National was in government.
Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, Mr Speaker.